Welcome back to the Channel Kimyo Space Cadets. It's the leader of the Cosmic Armada, back to bring you another Ordeal review. This episode has a ton of revelations that I can't wait to discuss, so if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to go the extra mile, consider sharing with a friend. Now, without further ado, let's discuss the title. The episode is titled What One Fights For. Now this one is based off of the individualized goals of each character in the episode. However, the actions of these characters lead them to justifications of those decisions, leading some goals, however selfish or righteous, to be fulfilled based off action. Now let's bring up some examples. Zahara, being a living talent weapon, has the least amount of longevity to her plan, which is to keep winning battles, no end goal, just constant violence. Her defeat to King David led her to seek someone even more fitting to be her vessel in order to adhere to her own sense of pride. Sealed into Pandora until getting called by Andrea, bringing that to an end. We then have Shay. Since his introduction, he had always proven to be intelligent. We see his tactical prowess in his fight as a human with both K.O.D.E and Naki. At this point, he was an ordinary human who lacked the vision to see beyond his own selflessness. Using the martial arts, Leo taught him to enter tournaments to afford his housing, but also his sister's schooling as well, leaving him with a plethora of injuries that could have had lifelong ramifications. When getting the talent, he disregards the law itself in order to protect others, disregarding what would have happened if Ian did not understand the importance of the Ilios vessel holding his strength. Shay says to Andrea in season 3, what he learned about himself besides power was worth it, going to show a change in perspective of his character. Now, even with good intentions, he still massacred countless amounts of people in the Count Chicken conflict, with Sun through Moon leaving the land barren and uninhabitable due to the nuclear items being destroyed. This almost got Shay put on trial, and due to the nation's fear of Thanatos, with the vulgarness of his chi included as well, will result in an imprisonment for the rest of his life. Going to show a parallel that both Zahara and Shay has. The need for war to hide one's shame, reflecting Zahara, and the need of war disregarding shame and personal wants in order to be the vessel the Lord needs, in order to bring ultimate peace upon both Kimyo and humans. Going to show the purity of Shay while also reflecting the darkness of Zahara makes them a great yin and yang parallel. Now, with the title broken down, on to the events of the episode. Mohflu states, I knew I recognized something about your chi from the moment in my past. We have crossed paths before, haven't we, Zahara? One of history's greatest sins. I remember your sin, one of all weapons. Continuing with, you were the Egyptian Kopesh in Goliath's hands, the great giant of the Philistines. As Zahara thought she could conquer the world through him, as her original form is broken, she took the battle as a stain on her very existence, causing her to switch between weapons and taking over her host, ultimately giving everyone the perspective that she is dangerous, also giving her the name of Queen of Blade. Even if she lost the battle physically, she could always submit anyone through a battle of chi. How could one mortal make the Queen of Weapons submit with such a fragile body? She could only try to peer into his heart in order to learn more about him. So for those who don't know about the David and Goliath story, let's touch on it. Now, David was a sheep herder who defended his flock from a lion and bear, while Goliath was a soldier in the Philistine army who challenged the Israelites. He wore heavy armor, carried a sword, shield, and spear. David brought his brother food on the battlefield, being dismissed by his brother, who was an Israelite soldier, since he was questioning why no one would defend Israel. As David went to go see King Saul, Saul questioned his battle prowess. Whereas for David, it was never a battle of physical might, but one whose outcome was predetermined due to the benevolence of God's protection. King Saul commanded David to wear armor in which he would not deem it best for him, ultimately conclude that the armor would be more of a hindrance, as he gathers 5 smooth stones. As he walks to Goliath with his shepherd's staff and his sling, Goliath sees the frail challenger. He can only make mockery of him, while David spoke of only God's protection, while also dedicating this battle to the greatness of God. As he runs quickly while loading a smooth rock into his slingshot, hurling it at the giant as it crashes between his eyes, Goliath comes crashing down, winning the battle for the Israelites. David had a purpose by God, which was to ultimately replace King Saul. Now in Ordeal, we do see David as one of the vessels that Ilios holds in high regard, as we see the capabilities of David's slingshot in both close range and when being flung in long range, giving David humble beginnings and the size of this Kopesh, which we will get into later. We can conclude that David's sling's fireball compared to the size of Goliath was only stones. In Ordeal, we can assume that the one stone defeat is still the case because of how heavy the Bible is interwoven into the story. This would mean that Goliath would be probably swinging at David flings a paper-like fireball to Goliath, breaking both Zahara and hitting Goliath between the eyes with one fell swoop. If we consider that Kimyo will be incomprehensibly stronger then compared to now, now, then the sling would carry a lot more power with it. Keep in mind that David also had God on his side as well, so this would allow Zahara pride to shatter, as no one would be able to wield her. She could not see combat anymore. With that knowledge, she abandoned her body and fled into other weapons. Elio said that she thought she would conquer the world through Goliath. This could mean two things, but I lean towards the latter. The first is Goliath could have had less chi and Zahara possessed him. However, this would be unlikely. Shay stated she have strayed from the path intended for her and donned a cursed name. We even have Leif's statement of the chi being cursed, meaning the chi could not be considered cursed until Zahara donned the name Noroigiri, which lead me to the second conclusion, that her and Goliath was meant to work together. She allowed the legendary giant to enhance his power further as long as they go into battle, but the way it ended caused such a shameful display that she refused to work together with anyone until this point, and only chose to dominate anyone who touched her blade. We see many cracks alongside her blade, going to show how many times she may have failed in battle or been shaken to her core, also paralleling the scars that Shay has as well. When we see the introduction, Mohflu is on Shay's side where he can see, but when we see Shay speaking to Zahara, she is by his scar eye, reflecting her being damaged, but also Shay allowing himself to be vulnerable as well, as he tells Zahara that he could use her knowledge in war for the one he is raging, as Zahara can only look at the man who is providing her the choice. Now, I do want to spend some time discussing the size of Zahara and Goliath. Now, Zahara's true form is a giant khopesh. The Egyptian khopesh ranges between 22 to 24 inches. There are 12 inches in the foot, so using that as a conversion factor, it would make a khopesh around 2 feet. We can use this 2 feet as a piece of the foundation. Shay comes in at 6'2" as of season 2, called identification card. This would make Shay about 74 inches. Dividing 74 into 24 would make Shay 3.8 times the normal size of a khopesh. Keep this number in mind. We don't need an exact size, more of an estimate for Zahara and Goliath, so let's keep it as simple as possible. If we gauge where Shay's standing and stack Shay's one on top of one another, since his head is tilted upward, his line of sight is different. So to mitigate the margin of error, I would start at Shay's nose. It takes about 9 different shades to get to Zahara's foot, leaving about 2 feet to the hilt. Now, if I multiply 9 by 74 inches, we receive 666, plus the 2 feet of the hilt that's cut off by Zahara, and converted that into inches as well, will equal out to 24, which means that Zahara's original size is 690 inches. Now, converting those inches into feet by dividing 690 into 12, we get Zahara's original size being at 57.5, making it 57 feet 6 inches. Now, we know that Shay from the previous calculation stands about 3.08 times the normal height of a khopesh, which is why I told you to keep this in mind, because now we will multiply at 3.08, which is regarded as the difference of a humanoid to this weapon specifically, to determine Goliath's size. Now, the 3.08 will be multiplied by 690 inches to give us 2,125.2 inches. And due to the decimal being lower, we would just round down and say 2,125 inches. Now, all that's left is to convert that 2,125 inches into feet by dividing 2,125 into 12, which will make Goliath in the Ordeal verse 177 feet tall. There are some different things I want to discuss, so let's continue on. We are showing the concerned Reed Haven as he speaks with Ai. Ai is saying that the soldiers are scared and she does not know if she can do this. As she questions if Val drinks blood, Reed said that she would never be forced to answer to K.O.D.E and that she will only fight when she is ready. But her brother Rai is already excited for a fight. This reflects his great potential. As Rai begins to exhale chi, they touch hands and Reed Haven's talent is then revealed. His talent is called Soul Point, a psychic and range control type talent. Now it says Reed Haven possesses one of the only 2 Soul Point eyes in existence, given to him by his father. The soul eye detects weak points on a desired target. Once locked in, a soul link is formed between the eye and point of focus. A psychic barrier is created, preventing the target from covering or concealing that connected spot. When I first seen the eye, I said it reminded me of the line in the scope, so I thought it was a talent that made him unable to miss. So I called Reed Vanderdecken from One Piece, however, that's not exactly true. Vanderdecken from One Piece can hit the spot he touched, no matter the distance. In this case, it would be more of a clairvoyant talent, where the psychic bubble is his only view on his opponent. This will reveal that selected Kimyo to read whether it is by chi sense as a result of his talent. We do know that chi leaves a residue behind that can be picked up by technology, allowing them to find them. But what I can't wrap my head around is similar to the Eye of Time. The soul point shot was given, but is one of the 2. We have no implications of the second eye location in the story, but it intrigued me nonetheless. But what intrigued me was, why was the 2 eyes separated? Could it be another power is obtained when they both are together, similar to what we get with the Mangeki or Sharingan in Naruto, or would it be the increase in proficiency of the psychic barrier? Rai transforms into a gun, which is when their talent are officially revealed to a limited capacity. So let's talk about it. Iron Rai Sato, the talent twins. Talent type, state, and range. The living talent Iron Rai Sato shifts between human and weapon form. Rai molds himself into a ranged weapon that allows the modern design of the century. I is unknown. With unknown origins, they can assume to be over 300 years old, perpetually stuck at the age of 9. They cannot develop further mentally or physically. Now, when Rai activates his talent, he closes his eyes in the first moment, going to show the extreme focus required in order to mold himself. They are stuck at the age of 9, which will mean they are in a state akin to the Adamos brothers, meaning a talent given physical form. If we take into account that the Adamos brothers died eventually, this would mean that the twin spirit are more connected to the ether than they are the mortal plane. If we take into account that the soul dissipates into the ether after one dies, that would mean for them not to age, their bodies will be less biological and more metaphysical. We see they still require sleep, but we also have a case where they are able to see Shay confiding in Mahhalel, albeit only as a bright light. You can assume that Mahhalel blocks others' views of him, but that wouldn't be the case. This may be a case where them being connected to the mortal plane, that they are unable to see him in his true form, even if he's already in his true form touching Shay physically. So albeit connected closer to the ether in regards to their inner workings, they still have biological limitations as well. Rai could potentially become a heat-seeking missile, a jet, since that is technically range weaponry and even the most dangerous weapon of all, which is a nuke. So this mixed with Reed's ability to always see his target makes sense on how they have god tier potential. It seems that Rai uses current technology, which would lead me to assume his sister could go 3 ways with her ability. The first two are based on the use of time being a factor in the talent, so she could become a weapon of the past, in which we know humans eventually subjugated the Kimyo race, and this could be due to an ancient type of weapon, or she could go the route of future weaponry, which would be more likely than past weaponry. This would be due to current technology not being able to keep up with future technology. We didn't have the option, which may not be likely, but I would like to include, which is her potential to become some sort of armor based off past, present, or future. We see a lot of high tier don some sort of scar. I know Reed has a scar on her shoulder, but if we take into account her appearance being the one closest to Reed, while Rai is closer to the frame, the fact that she is more hesitant on joining the battle could mean she is afraid of getting hurt, making Reed have a form of perfect defense or offense, or it could be she is afraid of the destruction she is capable of. Now all their talents are individually strong, but due to the twins lacking mental aptitude to grow, they would need someone with a strong moral compass to help them in utilizing themselves in the right setting. Then we see Shay follow his nose, in which he surrounds the spot where the shadow smell is at its strongest with blue flames. With the war going on with Lewis, there isn't much I want to talk about. Lewis is on his last legs and is hoping Ngameki releases the dome once Vaal kills him, giving them a chance to kill Vaal. Now, Mahhalel tells Shay that he will get his chance with Vaal. Maybe he knows more about Shay's destiny than he's telling us, because we see Zahara true form, and as Shay asks if his body can utilize more talent weapons, Ilios didn't say anything, going to show that he is only providing Shay so much information. If you want to take a look at this relationship as a glass half empty, you could say Mahhalel is manipulating Shay, just like Luis says this episode that information trumps power. Now Luis finally gets injured by Vaal's blade, resulting in Luis ripping off his arm. This reminds me of how the zombie virus spreads when it corrupts the cell, causing the white blood cells to try to fight it off, ultimately corrupting those cells as well, making the virus spread. The blood acts as the initial virus, and as it comes to contact with more cells, Vaal could be choosing to absorb the chi from their cells, causing the cell to be damaged from the manipulation of Vaal's blood in the body. Luis' talent then begins to comfort him after removing the mask, which seemed like something that the talent wants to do itself rather than Luis controlling it. Luis realized how to do the exact same thing like Vaal, which is infecting the cells with his talent. Having complete control over his talent, he shoots it into Vaal. Even if you have a lot of chi that could potentially heal you, that would not matter if they are attacking the cell directly. This would lead to one of my assumptions that each talent could be used like other types, but it depends on chi manipulation, which will require an inhuman amount of training. While Luis is using a creation talent, he's now using toxic type traits. If we look at the haste talent, Teva is using Rhino Hide, which is his most defensive hide when chasing behind Shay to get to Vaal's location. Haste talent burns their chi as fuels, and their body are attuned to moving at high speeds, going to show the dangers of moving too fast. If we look at Tevin, even at that high speed, he would actively have to have a hide on in order to avoid hurting his body due to the amount of chi being used to propel himself to high speeds. While Shay's body is the strongest in the series, also with an infinite amount of chi, would allow him to move as fast as possible Mohflu, while also allowing him to reinforce his body with chi to avoid hurting himself as well, making both a high and a state talent exude properties of a haste talent through chi manipulation. Now, Lewis Ash will attack Vao's cell directly, causing something so easily damaged to be destroyed, and chi coming from that particular cell may be rendered useless, and with enough cells being destroyed or decaying, Vao would feel intense pain. Art-wise, I do love how Brent showed Zahara ill intent with her face, going to show a complex character who has trust issues, yes, but one who goes supersede any previous desire and is living only in pride and selfishness while being forced to live in their purpose. We even get the parallel of Shay and Zahara representation in this episode as well. The next panel is the landing panel of Zahara when she plops off the Kopesh, which is reminiscent of the landing Shay does in War State in season 2. We will have to pay attention to how these characters play off one another in future seasons. However, hopefully this video earned your like and subscription as we are on the road to 1K. Anyway, it's your captain signing off. See ya, Space Cadets.